望见这更长，何因冒尖堂忙混热，自为三千滚滚的干，两鬓光谁杀魂魄，苍桑那不要冷天国，一年怎见到风能天毛洒洒着变脸，风变脸，乐观会当当分辨，会当
Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. The date is 16 June 1968. Operation Rolling Thunder is not yet over, but since 1st of April, bombing halt above the 20 degrees latitude was declared by President Johnson. Attacks were now restricted to so-called route packs 1, 2, and 3. One of the aircraft carriers operating in the Gulf of Tonkin at the time was USS America, with its new F-4Js. They were a significant improvement over the older F-4Bs. The J model featured more powerful J79 GE-10 engines, but even more importantly, much better avionics. The new AN-OG-10 pulse Doppler fire control system featured a radar which was now able to detect low-flying targets. Older models with pulse-only radars were unable to distinguish returns from low-level aircraft among ground returns. The system featured solid-state electronics, offering major improvements over older vacuum tubes, which would often overheat during pre-flight tests. Of course, the new system initially had its quirks and needed some experience to be gained by air and ground crews. The new type made its combat debut on 31st May 1968 in an air-to-ground mission over North Vietnam. North Vietnamese Air Force also received a new variant of its MiG-21 fighter, the PFM. Soviet Union supplied 36 examples in the first half of 1968. There was, however, a shortage of pilots, and American airstrikes forced the North Vietnamese to send most of their MiGs to China, with only a handful operating from their home bases. Since April 1968, as already mentioned, Americans limited their attacks to the southern part of North Vietnam, and apart from calling their fighters back from China, the communist leadership decided to repair the air bases in that region known as Military District 4, and send fighter detachments to defend it. One of these air bases was Tho Xuan. This is probably a good time to say that the aircraft types we use here are not 100% historically correct. The F-4 is in fact an F-4B mod, while the MiG-21 is a BIS instead of BFM. The skins are not correct either. It's not a matter of ignorance but rather availability. And if you're new to the channel or DCS World generally, this is not the real map of Vietnam, so there is no need to correct any of these things. Also, I want to thank my buddy Deuce for helping me with this reenactment. He also has a YouTube channel. It's Croatian language only, but you can check it out. The link is in video description. On the afternoon of 16 June 1968, two newly qualified MiG-21 pilots took off and flew along Highway 15. They were Dinh Ton and Nguyen Tien Sam. The leader Dinh had previously shot down 3 Firebee drones. Initially, they flew low at about 300 meters and 800 kilometers per hour. Then, they climbed to 1500 meters, and their ground control reported enemy aircraft in their proximity. Here's where American and Vietnamese sources start to differ. The American aircraft were US Navy F-4J Phantoms, flown by Commander Walter Wilber, the commanding officer of VF-102 Squadron, and Lieutenant Emery Brown as his wingman. American sources say that they were vectored onto a group of 5 MiGs. Then, they came under strong AAA fire, which they suspected was a flak trap that MiGs threw them into. As the Phantoms were about to lock up the MiGs, they received orders to turn back because they were about to cross the 19th parallel line, which was now off limits. One of the sources mentions that the Phantoms launched 4 Sparrows at the MiGs but scored no hits. Another source says that the cruiser St. Louis, which was controlling the intercept, gave Wilber a reciprocal vector as he was approaching the MiGs. This made him believe that they had passed under him, so he turned back to pursue them. The MiGs, however, were still approaching, and this maneuver placed them right behind the Phantoms. The MiGs reported seeing AAA fire, and then they saw 4 F-4s at about 10 kilometers. They jettisoned their fuel tanks, opened the throttle, and commenced the attack. Vietnamese pilots don't mention any missiles being launched at them. Dinh Ton, however, reported seeing 4 Phantoms and 3 of them turning away. The 4th Phantom passed underneath the MiGs, so they turned and went after it. As the lone Phantom was now heading towards the sea, Dinh Ton approached within 1500 meters and launched an R-3S missile, which scored a direct hit. American sources give us a different version. According to one of them, when Commander Wilber and his wingman Lieutenant Brown turned away, they didn't expect the MiGs to follow them, because they would often only feint an attack but turn back afterwards. This time, the MiGs were persistent. The wingman, Lieutenant Brown, saw 2 MiGs approaching and sent radio warnings to Commander Wilber. It seems that his radio was being jammed and the warning was not heard. Lieutenant Brown turned towards the MiGs, but the leader was already able to launch a missile which hit Commander Wilber's jet. Lieutenant Brown then pursued the MiGs, and he reported launching 2 missiles. He didn't observe any results since he had to turn back again, approaching the 19th parallel. He also needed to offer protection to his downed flight lead. The one thing where American and Vietnamese sources clearly agree is that Commander Wilber survived the ejection and was captured. His Rio, Lieutenant Junior Grade Bernie Lupinski, failed to eject and died. It was his first and last combat mission. Commander Wilber remained a POW until February 1973, and his story is different from most other prisoners. During his time in the camp, he came to a conclusion that the war was illegal and misguided. He even made anti-war statements for his captors to publish. He wasn't the only American POW to feel this way, but most of them would suppress these beliefs. Commander Wilber, on the other hand, remained outspoken for the rest of his life. That didn't mean he was anti-military. He flew over 200 combat missions in Korea and Vietnam. Even his son pursued a Navy career. After Walter Wilber returned from Vietnam, he and one Marine officer were charged by another former prisoner, James Stockdale, with mutiny, aiding the enemy, refusing to obey orders, and trying to persuade other POWs to be insubordinate. Navy and Marine officials, however, refused to persecute him, fearing that other POWs who supplied anti-war statements, even under duress, would be found culpable too. Walter Wilber retired from the Navy and eventually died in 2015. The view of his conduct as a POW remains controversial to this day. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to press the like button if you did. Join our Discord server, support the channel on Patreon, and keep watching Showtime 112.